Okay, welcome to Tamid class, a new chapter on a new topic. We're going to discuss now the next phase in the service of the temple, which is getting the mizbeach, getting the altar ready for the day's service. Where we ended off before was the Kohen who was chosen to go and do the Trumas Hadeshen, to go and shovel out the ash and coals from the Mizbeach from the night before. Throughout the night, all the extra karbanos, all the extra sacrifices, all the extra little pieces that weren't burnt during the day were left to burn at night. And so at night, there was a massive heap of ashes ready to be cleaned away for the next day. So as we said, all the Kohanim are standing right now by the bakery, by the place where they make those pancakes, and they're waiting for their friend to go wash their hands and feet, and his hands and feet, go up to the Mizbeach with the shovel, take a shovel of coals, bring it down to the floor, and then what happens? So the next Mishnah continues to say, Ro Echav, when his brothers, the other Kohanim, see Shiyarad, that he comes down, Behem Ratzim, and they run Uvayim, they run Maru Kitchu Yadam, they go hastily to sanctify their hands, Viragleim, and their feet, Minakir, from the basin. Natlu es Magrefes, as they go and they grab the shovels and the forks, the pitchforks, and all the rest of the Kohanim go up to the top of the Mizbeach, top of the giant altar in the courtyard of the temple. What do? They find over there that even though a whole night it's been burning, a whole night, there are obviously going to be some of the limbs and some of the fats from the sacrifice of the day before that are not completely burnt. So, but they have to clean it out. So what do? Hey, varim, the limbs, darim, and the fats, shaloinis aklu, which were not consumed of the night before. Sulkin oisam al tzidei hamizbeach, they push it to the sides of the mizbeach. They push it to the edges. Im ein tzdadim machzikim, and if there's not enough room on the edges of the mizbeach because it was a very heavy day the day before, sardin oisai, they go and they arrange it. They arrange them b'soive ala kevesh, on the ledge of the ramp. So they have that extra room, the ramp going up, which was very, very big in its own right. They then start, after they take away all the big pieces that were not consumed, all the ash that's on the Mizbeach, they start shoveling it and putting it on top of the tapuach, which is the apple. What's the apple? So says the Mishnah, tapuach haya be'emtza mizbeach. There was a dome shaped like an apple of ash in the center of the mizbeach. Ha'amim shayu alav kishalesh me'es kur. Sometimes the heap, the round heap, was on top of the mizbeach, was so much that it ended up being 300 kur. Kur is a tremendous measurement. It's a measurement in the Gemara. The Gemara has its measurements, like we have our cups, pints, liters, or etc., kilograms, whatever it may be. They have their own system of measurement. A kur is a tremendous amount. I don't know exactly how it translates into modern day measurements, but we're talking about a vast amount of pounds. I don't know, maybe hundreds of pounds. So that's how much ash could accumulate on the Mizbeach and placed on the heap. And during the holidays, they would not remove the ashes from the altar they would just keep on heaping this on top of the heap and more, because it is beautiful for the Mizbeach. It's a sign of beauty for the Mizbeach. During the holidays, which is Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuos, that's when all the people in Israel came to the temple. All the people in Israel came to give sacrifices. You can imagine the amount of ashes that was there. And we say you don't clean it up because it is really beautiful for the Mizbeach, that everyone can see the amount of sacrifices being sacrificed with this heap. Let me give you a little imagery. Look at this. Everyone see? This is the top of the Mizbeach. These are the Kohanim who are very busy tending to the fires. We're going to discuss these two fires over here, everything, but everyone see the heap over here? That is called a tapuach, because like an apple, it is round. It is round. It is dome shaped. Okay, let's continue in the Mishnah. And in all the days, the rest of the days, the Kohanim were not lazy, did not hesitate to take away the deshen. It's a regular day. If it's not the holiday. So if the mound is getting too big and the mound is taking over the whole mizbeach, we need some place for the fresh wood and the fresh fires for the next day's service. Then they would just remove the ashes to another location and keep the mizbeach running that way. Then other Kohanim would bring the pieces of the wood, would bring the logs, to start setting up the arrangement of the fire, the arrangement of the arranging the wood of the fire, which was a very precise arrangement, so that the fire can consume nicely all the wood. Says the Mishnah, are all types of wood kosher for this arrangement? Right? Kosher meaning allowed, not just eating. Kosher could also mean, is it allowed? Is it permissible halachically? So can we use all wood for the arrangement on the Mizbeach? So says the Gemara, all of the different types of wood are all kosher to bring on the Mizbeach, on the arrangement of the fire, chutz, except mishal gefen, the wood of the vines of grapes, mishal zayis, or the wood of olive tree. However, if you want to know what was the most preferred, the young branches, the very fresh branches of the fig, shall egais, or of the nut tree, v'shal eight shemen, or the pine tree. Those were the most preferred. See this hamaracha gdela. So they went and they commenced to build the arrangement of wood, the large arrangement, mizracha, on the east side of the altar, v'chazisa mizracha, and the opening to this massive wooden pile, they had like an opening inside, was mizracha, was on the east side. V'reisha grizim hapnimin hayunegim b'tapuach, and it was such a big bonfire. It was such a big fire. The inner ends of the logs would even touch the tapuach, the massive heap of ashes. And there was a lot of space in between each of the logs, that they would ignite. They would place twigs in between the big logs, and they would be able to ignite them, and the fire would spread throughout the logs. Let's look at the image over here. Everyone sees how it is being constructed. You see these logs over here, how it's being constructed. Anyone have Lincoln Logs at home? Lincoln Logs. Where do you think Lincoln Logs got their model from? They got their model from the Mizbeach, obviously. Look how he's setting it up. It's like Lincoln Logs. The point is that there's a lot of space in between the logs, a lot of space, because fire needs wood and oxygen. The more oxygen you have, the faster the fire will spread very nicely and be rise up in a beautiful fashion. Now here the imagery is beautiful imagery, but it is lacking in accuracy a bit, because as we said, this bonfire was so big that it was even touching the tapuach, touching the pile of ashes, which over here you see there's a cone standing in between. So obviously either the pile of ashes is not exactly in the right place, or it's too small, or the fire here is also too small. But really, it was taking up a massive amount of the mizbeach. But you see, this is on the east side. So the image, we are standing, if you're looking at this image, we're standing on the south side of the Beis HaMikdash, which is on the left side if you're facing the sanctuary, right? See, if you're facing the sanctuary, look at this picture up here on the top right. If you're facing the sanctuary, that means you're standing on the east. You're facing the sanctuary. You have the mizbeach right over here in the courtyard in front. Now over here in this image, you're standing on the left. You're observing from the left, from the south, and you see that this big bonfire, the main one, was on the east side. On the east side, over here on the right of the mizbeach, it was on the east side. Now let's continue, because it wasn't only one bonfire. There was not only one fire on the mizbeach. The mizbeach was able to hold more than one. Says the Mishnah. What they would do is they would take from their fine logs, very nice tender logs of the fig tree, and they would arrange the second arrangement, the second bonfire. Likteras, and this bonfire, they would take out the wood, the burning wood, when it crumbled into coals. They would take those coals into the sanctuary for the small mizbeach inside the building, and that mizbeach was much smaller, incomparably smaller. It was like a stool. It was like chest level tabletop, and over there, the Kohanim every single day would burn the incense, the spices, which was a different type of carbon. So where would they put the second arrangement? Keneged Ma'aravis Doremis, they would put it on the western, southern side. Back to our image, western, right over here to the left, southern, towards us, towards where we are standing and observing this image. You see, it's on this side. And says the Mishnah, Mashoch Mina Keren, how far away from the corner? Slap Eitzafin towards the north, Arba Amos, 4 Amos, about 6 feet. Okay, so this is the corner, and it was placed towards the north, not all the way to the north. It was over here in the south, but 4 Amos inward, 4 Amos, about 6 feet inward towards the north. And let us continue. What happens now? Okay, Ba'imad. How much wood would they put? Chamesh sa'in gechalin. Enough wood that we would have 5 se'ah, another measurement. 5 se'ah, which is, I don't know how much a se'ah is. It's very hard to know. Modern day, I'm going to try to find, maybe I'll, online, maybe we'll ask our AI friend to come up with the equivalent, how much a se'ah is. But it's a nice amount. So 5 sa'in gechalin, 5 se'ah of coals. So you need a lot of wood to come up with those coals, because the coals are where the wood completely disintegrates and the embers are burning, right? So obviously the wood collapses and you have, it reduces in size. And in order to get 5 se'ah of coals, you need a vast amount of wood. I just want to say the mizbeach was just the roof of the mizbeach was 28 by 28 amos. So we're talking about, it's a massive structure. There's plenty of room. No one has to worry about that. 28 amos. Again, we're saying an amma is about 1.5 feet. So 28 amos is about 30 34 feet, right? Something like that, by 34 feet. So we're talking about a vast, vast area. Anyway, with Shabbos, but on Shabbos, on Shabbos, there should really be enough for 8 sa gechalim of coals. Why? Because we're talking about that small bonfire, right? We're talking about that small bonfire, which we took the coals all the way into the sanctuary for the small mizbeach. So on a regular day, you need enough coal to take to the mizbeach to burn the incense. But on Shabbos, you had something extra. On Shabbos, we actually read about this in Shabbos davening. Next time you pay attention. Not only do we have the regular incense, the regular teres it's called, which we read about in the morning before Shachas. We read teres, right? Not only have the regular incense, but on Shabbos, we would also place over there Shnei Baziche Levina. There would be 2 bowls of frankincense, a special type of spice, Shalechem upon him, which accompanied the bread, on a weekly basis. What's the bread? So inside the sanctuary, we'll learn about this more later. Just quickly, this should keep you up informed over here. In the sanctuary, there were 3 major vessels. There was the small mizbeach, which we have mentioned. There was the menorah, which you mentioned, which was kindled every single day, the golden menorah of the temple. And the third thing was this rack, this tabletop rack with 12 loaves of bread. And these 12 loaves of bread were holy bread. They remained there from week to week. Every Shabbos, they were switched. And every Shabbos, the bread from the previous week would be eaten by the Kohanim. And that was a special service for the bread service. So that is a weekly service, not a daily service. And with the bread were 2 bowls of spices that accompanied the bread. They were placed on top of the bread throughout the week. And those 2 bowls were then offered of spices, were offered on the Mizbeach as extra incense. So of course, on Shabbos, you need more coals because you have more spices to offer up on the Mizbeach. Let's continue the Mishnah. Haivarim, V'havdarim, the limbs and the fats. Those that were not able to be consumed from the night before, which we placed on the edge of the Mizbeach in order to set up shop, they are brought back to the fresh fire, the new arrangement of wood, placed on the new arrangement of wood, in order to be consumed today. And both arrangements were ignited, fire. Where does the fire come from? As we mentioned before, there's a chamber of a pilot light. There's a chamber in the Beis Hamikdash with a constant fire burning and kept burning, so they always had fire from the Mizbeach. And when they were done setting up the Mizbeach, and now the fire is burning, so a lot of preparation was done for the service today. They come down the Mizbeach through the ramp, and they go to Lishkas Hagazis, which is a chamber of stone, of Hu and stone. It was the chamber. It was known of the chamber of Hu and stone because it was made out of stone that was beautifully prepared. And this was one of the chambers alongside the Azara, alongside the courtyard. And over there, they would do the lottery. I'll give you a peek. Ooh, that's what the lottery is. But we will get to this in another page of Talmud. So you got to wait for this. Let's go to the Gemara. The Gemara is going to now clarify, explain, comment on the Mishnah. Okay. So we have here just a comment, which we could read. The biblical se'ah recurs as a measure in the Mishnah from which it appears that it was equal to 6 kavs, or 13,184 cubic centimeters. Another saw which was used in Arbela was called the Arbelian saw. It's mentioned in Jerusalem Talmud, although no comparison is drawn between it and the ordinary saw. So basically, a saw is 3.40 48 gallons. 3.48 gallons. That's how much a saw is. Okay. How many saw is there in a kur? I'll leave that to you to figure out, and you can text me in the chat and we'll announce it. How many saw are there in a kur, and how many gallons, therefore, are there in a kur? Kur is a much larger measurement than a saw. Okay. Amarava, the Amoraic sage Rava said a bomb statement. The Mishnah said that there were 300 core of ashes on the circular heap. Guzma, this is an exaggeration. It's an exaggeration. It's not exactly 300 core. The Mishnah is trying to tell us that there was a large quantity of ashes at any given moment, not that there was literally 300 core, which wouldn't make any sense. Comma. Then he says, by the way, I'll tell you, Tamid, we're going to learn in a Mishnah coming up that they used to let the lamb, the daily sacrifice, the Tamid, which is the actual sacrifice, the lamb that was used on a daily basis, one in the morning, one in the evening, they would let the lamb drink from a golden cup before they offered it, because as we're going to learn, the lamb was flayed and chopped into pieces and offered that way, not whole. They didn't put the whole lamb on the mizbeach like that. And so in order to flay an animal easily, you get them to drink before they're slaughtered. So they gave them to drink in a golden cup. Amarava says, Guzma, that's also an exaggeration. You think they actually used a golden cup? No, they would give it to him in a nice vessel. Doesn't have to mean a golden cup. So I'm telling you a tradition that when these Mishnahs are talking like this way, it's just a guzma. A guzma means an exaggeration. Rav Ami then adds, the Amoraic sage says, actually, let me give you a little bit of context of it. There's actually Dibra Teda Lashon Havai. There's once where the Torah, one example I could give you, where the Torah speaks in exaggerated fashion. Dibra Nevi'im Lashon Havai. I could give you an example of where the prophets have spoken in exaggerated language. Dibra Chachamim Lashon Havai. And then I could give you an example where our sages spoke in exaggerated language. What are these examples? Dibra Torah Lashon Havai. Where does the Torah speak in exaggerated fashion? As it says in Dvarim, over here in our parsha this week. Arim Gedalim of Tzeides. The Moshe Rabbeinu speaking to the Jews before they go into Israel, and he's speaking, Arim Gedalim, great cities are there, Uvetzeres Bashamayim, and they are fortified up to the heavens. Bashamayim Sakadaitach, do you think that these cities had fortifications up all the way to the heavens? Now look, Guzma, it's an exaggeration. It's trying to bring a point. It's trying to bring a point that they were fortified very, very well, not literally ad Shemayim. I'll give you an example where the sages have spoken in exaggerated fashion. As we just said now, one example is the Tapuach, the great heap, the round heap of ashes on the Mizbeach. It's not literally 300 core. And another example, which we brought just now, is letting the lamb drink from a golden cup. I'll give you an example where the prophets spoke in exaggerated fashion. As it says in Malachim, it says that during the coronation ceremony of King Solomon, of Shlomo HaMelech, what does it say in the pasuk? They were blowing in the trumpets during the ceremony so loudly that the earth split from the noise. Do you really think the earth split open from the noise? No, we're just trying to say how everyone heard the noise. It was such a loud noise. It was so prominent. Amar Rav Yanai bar Nachmeni. Rabbi Yanai bar Nachmeni says, Amar Shmuel, in the name of the great Amalek sage Shmuel, a little bit of a different tradition. There are three places, three instances where I could indicate to you that our sages spoke in exaggerated fashion. And these are the three places. Tapuach, regarding the mount heap on the altar, as we just spoke. Gefen, regarding the vine. Pareches, and regarding the curtain. What does gefen and curtain, what are these things? You'll give me a second, says the Gemara. I'll explain it to you. But before I tell you what these things are, I need to point out the discrepancy between this tradition and the tradition of Rava, who was just brought just now. So let me point this out first before I explain to you what he said. This is coming, this statement is coming to argue, is to exclude from what Rava said, that's not that he said, that he learned, as we just learned, that feeding the lamb with a golden cup, V'amar Rava Guzma, and Rava said on that Mishnah that it is exaggeration. I'm arguing with that. That is literal. I did not add that in my list. My list was tapuach, gefen, v'pareches. It was the heap on the mizbeach, the vine, and the curtain, which will explain what they are. But I don't say anywhere here kaishel zahav, the golden cup, meaning that Shmuel holds that Shmuel has a tradition that the golden cup feeding the water to the lamb was actually literal. Kamash Malan, I learned this. Hani in hasamai. Right? These three that I mentioned are exaggerations, but over there, by the kaishel zahav, by the golden cup, it's not an exaggeration. It's not an exaggeration. Rather, it's literal. Why would they use a golden cup for the lamb to drink? Because he says there's a rule, ein aniyas b'makom ashiros, a bomb rule. You're not supposed to allow poverty or behaviors of poverty in a place of wealth. Everything has to be appropriate. In the temple, you gotta have the behavior and the actions and the rituals have to be appropriate for the place, right? You don't open up your fast food fries in the most upscale restaurant in Manhattan, right? You don't do that. So here, here we're talking about the Beis HaMikdash, where everything is golden and everything is top fashion, everything is top quality, everything was top quality. Everything was literally it was the most beautiful, most advanced building in the world. So yeah, so when you're in the barn area with the lamb and you're giving it water to drink, you're going to be doing it from golden vessels. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, now let's explain what Shmuel was saying. Let's explain this. Tapuach, what does it mean when he says tapuach, the apple, hada amran? This is exactly what we said before. It is the heap on top of the mizbech. Okay. Gefen, what does he mean when he says vine? There's an exaggeration about the vine. The Tanya, there is a Mishnah in Midas. We learned this in the other tractate about the Beis HaMikdash, Midas. What did we learn? Gefen zav haisei medas al pesach ha'heichel. There was a golden vine which was hanging by the entrance to the sanctuary, by that massive structure. A golden vine hanging down by the entrance. I'm just saying the entrance was such a high entrance. We're talking about 60 foot by 30 feet. So 60 foot high, 30 feet wide. It's a massive entrance, a tower. So on top, there was this golden vine. Oh, Maidla Galbik. Says, and it was hanging from the beams. And anyone who wants to donate a golden leaf, or a garger, or a golden grape, a eshkol, or a golden cluster, maybe v'telaba, you could bring it to the temple and hang it on the vine. This is probably the first shul that had a donor's wall. You know, those donor walls, those beautiful donor walls, those trees, those Eitz Chayims, and people bring their plaques and they put it there. This is probably where it all started from. In the temple, there was the donation process. And over there, literally, was you donated gold, and there was this massive golden vine, a lot of hooks and stuff, and people could come and donate. You know, the bigger you have the bigger donations, the small donations, the medium donations. So you had the leaf, and you had the clusters, and you had the grapes, and a different size donations according to different weight of gold. So Amar Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Tzadok. So says the Mishnah, Rabbi Lezer, the Tanaic sage said, Maisa, there was a story once happened. Maisa Haya, once happened, V'nimnu Aleya, and they had to count on it. Shalish Me'as Kahanim Lifnaisa. 300 Kahanim were called in order to remove it, in order to move it, because every once in a while they would take off all the gold and they would replace the vine for another round. So it was so heavy. It was so heavy. There was so much gold there that you needed 300 Kahanim to move that gold. Okay, so Shmuel holds that Mishnah is a bit of an exaggeration. It wants to say that there was a lot of Kahanim, there was a lot of gold, not 300. Okay, that's what he means by the vine. Now, Pareches, what does he mean by the Pareches, by the curtain? That there was an exaggeration regarding the curtain. If not, we learned in a Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Eimer, Rabbi Shimon, the son of Gamliel, says, Mishum, in the name, Rabbi Shimon has gone. Rabbi Shimon, who was the assistant Kohen, the deputy high priest, Hareiches, the curtain that separated inside the sanctuary. Let's get the map over here. Where is our sanctuary? Ooh, right here. All right, everyone see the sanctuary over here? This is the actual building. The vine, the golden vine, was over here by the entrance. By these two massive poles over here. And then you go inside. This was like the lobby. Then you go inside. There were doors inside the sanctuary. In the sanctuary, this was the inside of it, was split into two. The front part had the small altar, had the menorah, and had the bread table, bread racks. The inside room, the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies, had the golden ark, which contained the two tablets that Moshe brought from Har Sinai, Mount Sinai. What was in between? What was dividing this? So in the first temple, there was a wall. In the second temple, there was a curtain. So let's discuss this curtain. So says Rabbi Shimon has gone, this curtain, Avia Tefach, was as thick. The thickness of it was a Tefach. You know what a Tefach is? Tefach is like more than half a foot. Talking about more than 6 inches. The thickness of it was more than 6 inches. Can you imagine how thick this curtain was? I'm just saying that the roof was 40 amos high, was 60 feet high. What? So we're talking about the thickness of this curtain was a whole tefach. Al shivim vishnayim nimen nereges. It was woven from 72 strands. V'al kol nima on every strand, v'kol nima v'nima on every single strand, esim v'arba chutim. Every strand was made out of 24 threads from different materials, from many different materials. We're talking about this curtain was like a wall in itself. I don't know how it hung. They hung it somehow. It's a massive curtain. Archa arba amas, v'rachba esrim amas. The length, which means the height of it, was 40 amas, because that's how tall the sanctuary roof was. V'rachba esrim amas, and the width was 20 amas. So we're talking about 60 feet by 30 feet. Umishmainim v'shtayim nibua, and it was 82 tens of thousands. Nibua means tens of thousands. Okay, that means 820,000 dinners. That's how much it cost. V'shtayim oisim b'chol shana v'shana, and they would make two of these curtains. They would sew two of these curtains every single year. They would renew the curtain every half a year. V'sholish meis kahanim matbilin isa, and the curtain needed to go to mikvah. The curtain needed to be immersed in the mikvah before it was placed into the mizbeach. As we're going to learn, all vessels in the temple went through the mikvah process to purify them. All vessels, including the curtains. How many kohanim did it take to do this? 300 kohanim. Also over here, says Shmuel, this Mishnah as well is a bit of an exaggeration. It's not literally 300 kohanim, but it just means a vast amount of kohanim because it was really, really heavy. So we see a certain theme, by the way, with the number 300. We see a certain theme. The 300 was kind of like a number to tell you there was a lot. Not necessarily is that number literal. So here we conclude this piece of Gemara. And I say, what's the lesson from this? The lesson from this is the tremendous importance of having an oral tradition to the Torah, as well as an oral tradition to how to learn the Gemara. When you're reading, and there's a lot of statements in the Torah, there's a lot of statements in the Talmud, which are they exaggeration or are they not exaggeration? Is it literal or not literal? We learn in the Gemara sometimes. Like, for example, it's very apropos for these days, the Gemara in Gittin, in the Tractate of Gittin, which discusses the destruction of the temple. And over there was literally a Holocaust. The destruction of the temple was accompanied by a murder, spree of the Jewish people in the land. And the amounts murdered were astronomical. And the Talmud describes that we're talking about one county in Israel had 600,000 cities, and each one of them had 600,000 people. We're talking about, so it's just tremendous amounts. Over there also, there are commentators that explain to us and teach us how to learn the Gemara, how to learn it, that this is an exaggeration, it's trying to teach us something. There's a significance to the numbers beyond the literal sense. Okay, so we have these instances, but how are you to know when is it an exaggeration or when is it literal? So number one, whenever it's halacha, it's literal. Always. Never an exaggeration. Halacha never exaggerates. That's serious. Number two, you have to know how to learn the Gemara. You have to know how to learn the Mishnah. You have to know how to learn the Torah. And just like these sages, they had a tradition. They came with a tradition that this is the way you read the Mishnah. This is the way you read the Torah. So too, how important is it to have an oral accompaniment, to have a method taught to you by a teacher of how to know when the Torah is taught literal or exaggeration. And I could say also, obviously, that there's many levels to every piece of the Torah. So even when you say something that the Torah is talking exaggerated, like for example, in the case of King Solomon, where they were so loud that it split the earth, and we're saying it's not literal, yet there's a lot of significance and a lot of lessons we can learn from every single piece of Torah, even if we established that the terminology is just used as an exaggeration. And with that, we conclude our piece of Gemara, and everyone have a beautiful, wonderful day. So just to end up with this comment, a kur, it was equal to 1 chomer and contains 10 ephas in dry and 10 baths in liquid measure. Okay, the rabbis estimate the kur at 45 gallons, while Josephus estimated it at about 87 gallons. So a kur is a tremendous amount of 45 gallons. That is crazy. So obviously, if you're saying that there's 300 kur, you make the calculation, it's obviously an exaggeration to say that there were 300 times 45 gallons of ash on the Mizbeach. If that would be literal, ladies and gentlemen, if that would be literal, there would be a whopping, what are we doing? 300 plus 45 times, 300 times 45. That would be a whopping 13,500 gallons of ash on the Mizbeach, if you would take that literally. Anyway, everyone have a good day, and we will continue tomorrow.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a great day.